Sexual Personae by Camille Paglia. Page 29. Sex and Violence, or Nature and Art. The most effective weapon against the flux of nature is art. Religion, ritual, and art began as one, and a religious or metaphysical element is still present in all art. Art, no matter how minimalist, is never simply design. It is always a ritualistic reordering of reality. The enterprise of art, in a stable collective era, or an unsettled individualistic one, is inspired by anxiety. Every subject localized and honored by art is endangered by its opposite. Art is a shutting in order to shut out. Art is a ritualistic binding of the perpetual motion machine that is nature. The first artist was a tribal priest, casting a spell, fixing nature's daemonic energy in a moment of perceptual stillness. Fixation is at the heart of art. Fixation as stasis and fixation as obsession. The modern artist, who merely draws a line across a page, is still trying to tame some uncontrollable aspect of reality. Art is spellbinding. Art fixes the audience in its seat, stops the feet before painting, fixes a book in the hand. Contemplation is a magic act. Art is order, but order is not necessarily just kind or beautiful. Order may be arbitrary, harsh, and cruel. Art has nothing to do with morality. Moral themes may be present, but they are incidental, simply grounding an artwork in a particular time and place. Before the Enlightenment, religious art was hieratic and ceremonial. After the Enlightenment, art had to create its own world, in which a new ritual of artistic formalism replaced religious universals. 18th century Augustan literature demonstrates it is the order in morality, rather than the morality in order, that attracts the artist. Only utopian liberals could be surprised that the Nazis were art connoisseurs, particularly in modern times, when high art has been shoved to the periphery of culture. It is evident that art is aggressive and compulsive. The artist makes art not to save humankind, but to save himself. Every benevolent remark by an artist is a fog to cover his tracks, the bloody trail of his assault against reality and others. Art is a temenos, a sacred place. It is ritually clean, a swept floor, the threshing floor that was the first site of theater. Whatever enters this space is transformed. From the bison of cave painting to Hollywood movie stars, represented beings enter a cultic other life, from which they may never emerge. They are spellbound. Art is sacrificial, turning its inherent aggression against both artist and representation. Nietzsche said, "Almost everything we call higher culture is based on the spiritualization of cruelty." Literature's endless murders and disasters are therefore contemplative pleasure, not moral lesson. Their status as fiction, removed into a sacred precinct, intensifies our pleasure by guaranteeing that contemplation cannot turn into action. No lunge by a compassionate spectator can avert the cool inevitability of that hierarchic ceremony, ritually replayed through time. The blood that is shed will always be shed. Ritual in church or theater is amoral fixation, dispelling anxiety by formalizing and freezing emotion. The ritual of art is the cruel law of pain made pleasure. Art makes things. There are, I said, no objects in nature, only the grueling erosion of natural force, flecking, dilapidating, grinding down, reducing all matter to fluid, the thick primal soup from which new forms bob, gasping for life. Dionysus was identified with liquids, blood, sap, milk, wine. The Dionysian is nature's Chthonian fluidity. Apollo, on the other hand, gives form and shape, marking off one being from another. All artifacts are Apollonian. Melting and union are Dionysian. Separation and individuation, Apollonian. Every boy who leaves his mother to become a man is turning the Apollonian against the Dionysian. Every artist who is compelled toward art, who needs to make words or pictures as others need to breathe, is using the Apollonian to defeat Chthonian nature. In sex, men must mediate between Apollo and Dionysus. Sexually, woman can remain oblique, opaque, taking pleasure without tumult or conflict. Woman is a temenos of her own dark mysteries. Genitally, man has a little thing that he must keep dipping into Dionysian dissolution. A risky business. Thing-making, thing-preserving is central to male experience. Man is a fetishist. Without his fetish, woman will just gobble him up again. Hence, the male domination of art and science. Man's focus, directness, concentration, and projection, which I identified with urination and ejaculation, are his tools of sexual survival. But they have never given him a final victory. The anxiety in sexual experience remains as strong as ever. This man attempts to correct by the cult of female beauty. He is erotically fixated on woman's shapeliness, those spongy maternal fat deposits of breast, hip, and buttock, which are ironically the wateriest and least stable parts of her anatomy. Woman's billowy body reflects the surging sex of Chthonian nature. By focusing on the shapely, by making woman a sex object, man has struggled to fix and stabilize nature's dreadful flux. Objectification is conceptualization, the highest human faculty. Turning people into sex objects is one of the specialties of our species. It will never disappear, since it is intertwined with the art impulse and may be identical to it. A sex object is ritual form imposed on nature. It is a totem of our perverse imagination. Apollonian thing-making is the main line of Western civilization, extending from ancient Egypt to the present. Every attempt to repress this aspect of our culture has ultimately been defeated. First, Judaism, then Christianity turned against pagan idol-making. But Christianity, with wider impact than Judaism, became the most art-laden, art-dominated religion in the world. Imagination always remedies the defects of religion. The hardest object of Apollonian thing-making is Western personality. the glamorous, striving, separatist ego that entered literature in the Iliad, but, I will show, first appeared in art in Old Kingdom Egypt. Christianity, wiping out paganism's secular glamours, tried to make spirituality primary. But as an embattled sect, it ended by reinforcing the West's absolutist ego structure. The hero of the medieval church militant, the knight in shining armor, is the most perfect Apollonian thing in the world. Art books need to be rewritten. There is a different line from Greek and Roman sculpture through medieval armor to the Renaissance revival of classicism. Arms and armor are not handicrafts, but art. They carry the symbolic weight of Western personality. Armor is the pagan continuity in medieval Christianity. After the Renaissance released the sensual, idolatrous art-making of classicism, the pagan line has continued in brazen force to today. The idea that the Western tradition collapsed after World War I is one of the myopic little sulks of liberalism. I will argue that high culture made itself obsolete through modernism's neurotic nihilism, and that popular culture is the great heir of the Western past. Cinema is the supreme Apollonian genre, thing-making and thing-made, a machine of the gods. Man, the sexual conceptualizer and projector, has ruled art because art is his Apollonian response toward and away from woman. A sex object is something to aim at. The eye is Apollo's arrow, following the arc of transcendence I saw in male urination and ejaculation. The Western eye is a projectile into the beyond, that wilderness of the male condition. By no coincidence, Europe first made firearms for gunpowder, which China had invented centuries earlier, but found little use for. Phallic aggression and projection are intrinsic to Western conceptualization. Arrow, eye, gun, cinema. The blazing light beam of the movie projector is our modern path of Apollonian transcendence. Cinema is the culmination of the obsessive, mechanistic male drive in Western culture. The movie projector is an Apollonian straight shooter, demonstrating the link between aggression and art. Every pictorial framing is a ritual imitation, a barred precinct. The rectangular movie screen is clearly patterned on the post-Renaissance framed painting, but all conceptualization is a framing. The history of costume belongs to art history, but is too often regarded as a journalistic lady's adjunct to scholarship. There is nothing trivial about fashion. Standards of beauty are conceptualizations projected by each culture. They tell us everything. Women have been the most victimized by fashion's ever-turning wheel, binding their feet or bosom to phantom commands. But fashion is not just one more political oppression to add to the feminist litany. Standards of beauty created by men but usually consented to by women ritually limit women's archetypal sexual allure. Fashion is an externalization of woman's demonic invisibility, her genital mystery. It brings before man's Apollonian eye what that eye can never see. Beauty is an Apollonian freeze frame. It halts and condenses the flux and indeterminacy of nature. It allows man to act by enhancing the desirability of what he fears. The power of the eye in Western culture has not been fully appreciated or analyzed. The Asian abases the eyes and transfers value into a mystic third eye, marked by the red dot on the Hindu forehead. Personality is inauthentic in the East, which identifies self with group. Eastern meditation rejects historical time. We have a parallel religious tradition. The paradoxical axioms of Eastern and Western mystics and poets are often indistinguishable. Buddhism and Christianity agree in seeing the material world as samsara, the veil of illusion. But the West has another tradition, the pagan, culminating in cinema. The West makes personality and human numinous objects of contemplation. Western personality is a work of art, and history is its stage. The 20th century is not the age of anxiety, but the age of Hollywood. The pagan cult of personality has reawakened and dominates all art, all thought. It is morally empty but ritually profound. We worship it by the power of the Western eye. Movie screen and television screen are its sacred precincts. Western culture has a roving eye. Male sex is hunting and scanning. Boys hang yelping from honking cars, acting like jerks over strolling girls. Men, lunching on girders, go through the primitive book of wolf whistles and animal clucks. Everywhere, the beautiful woman is scrutinized and harassed. She is the ultimate symbol of human desire. The feminine is that which is sought. It recedes beyond our grasp. Hence, there is always a feminine element in the beautiful young man of male homosexuality. The feminine is ever elusive, a silver shimmer on the horizon. We follow this image with longing eyes. Maybe this one, maybe this time. The pursuit of sex may conceal a dream of being freed from sex. Sex, knowledge, and power are deeply tangled. We cannot get one without the others. Islam is wise to drape women in black, for the eye is the avenue of eros. Western cultures hard to find personalities suffer from inflammation of the eye. They are so numerous that they have never been catalogued, except in our magnificent portrait art. Western sexual personae are nodes of power, but they have made a torment of eroticism. From this torment has come our grand tradition of literature and art. Unfortunately, there is no way to separate the whistling ass on his girder from the rapt visionary at his easel. In accepting the gifts of culture, women may have to take the worm with the apple. Judeo-Christianity has failed to control the pagan Western eye. Our thought processes were formed in Greece and inherited by Rome, whose language remains the official voice of the Catholic Church. Intellectual inquiry and logic are pagan. Every inquiry is preceded by a roving eye, and once the eye begins to rove, it cannot be morally controlled. Judaism, due to its fear of the eye, put a taboo on visual representation. Judaism is based on word rather than image. Christianity followed suit, until it drifted into pictorialism to appeal to the pagan masses. Protestantism began as an iconoclasm, a breaking of the images of the corrupt Roman Church. The pure Protestant style is a bare white church with plain windows. Italian Catholicism, I am happy to say, retains the most florid pictorialism. The bequest of a pagan past that was never lost. Paganism is eye-intense. It is based on cultic exhibitionism. in which sex and sadomasochism are joined. The ancient Chthonian mysteries have never disappeared from the Italian church. Waxed saints' corpses under glass, tattered arm bones and gold reliquaries, half-nude Saint Sebastian, pierced by arrows, Saint Lucy, holding her eyeballs out on a platter, blood, torture, ecstasy, and tears. Its lurid sensationalism makes Italian Catholicism the emotionally most complete cosmology in religious history. Italy added pagan sex and violence to the acidic Palestinian creed, and so to Hollywood, the modern Rome. It is pagan sex and violence that have flowered so vividly in our mass media. The camera has unbound demonic Western imagination. Cinema is sexual showing, a pagan flaunting. Plot and dialogue are obsolete word baggage. Cinema, the most eye-intensive genres, has restored pagan antiquity's cultic exhibitionism. Spectacle is a pagan cult of the eye. There's no such thing as mere image. Western culture is built on perceptual relations, from the soaring god projections of ancient sky cult to the celebrity-inflating machinery of American commercial promotion. Western identity has organized itself around charismatic sexual personae of hierarchic command. Every god is an idol, literally an image. Latin idolum, from Greek idolon. Image is implied visibility. The visual is sorely undervalued in modern scholarship. Art history has attained only a fraction of the conceptual sophistication of literary criticism, and literature and art remain unmeshed, drunk with self-love. Criticism has hugely overestimated the centrality of language to Western culture. It has failed to see the electrifying sign language of images. The war between Judeo-Christianity and paganism is still being waged in the latest ideologies of the university. Freud, as a Jew, may have been biased in favor of the word. In my opinion, Freudian theory overstates the linguistic character of the unconscious and slights the gorgeously cinematic pictorialism of the dream life. Furthermore, arguments by the French about the rationalist limitations of their own culture have been illegitimately transferred to England and America, with poor results. The English language was created by poets, a 500-year enterprise of emotion and metaphor, the richest internal dialogue in world literature. French rhetorical models are too narrow for the English tradition. Most pernicious of French imports is the notion that there is no person behind a text. Is there anything more affected, aggressive, and relentlessly concrete than a Parisian intellectual behind his/her turgid text? The Parisian is a provincial when he pretends to speak for the universe. Behind every book is a certain person with a certain history. I could never know too much about that person and that history. Personality is Western reality. It is a visible condensation of sex and psyche outside the realm of word. We know it by Apollonian vision, the pagan cinema of Western perception. Let us not steal from the eye to give to the ear. Word worship has made it difficult for scholarship to deal with the radical cultural change of our era of mass media. Academics are constantly fighting a rearguard action. Traditional genre criticism is moribund. The humanities must abandon their insular fiefdoms and begin thinking in terms of imagination, a power that crosses the genres and unites high with popular art, the noble with the sleazy, There is neither decline nor disaster in the triumph of mass media, only a shift from word to image. In other words, a return to Western culture's pre-Gutenberg, pre-Protestant, pagan pictorialism. That popular culture reclaims what high culture shuts out is clear in the case of pornography. Pornography is pure pagan imagism. Just as a poem is ritually limited verbal expression, so is pornography ritually limited visual expression of the daemonism of sex and nature. Every shot, every angle in pornography, no matter how silly, twisted, or pasty, is yet another attempt to get the whole picture of the enormity of Chthonian nature. Is pornography art? Yes. Art is contemplation and conceptualization, the ritual exhibitionism of primal mysteries. Art makes order of nature's cyclonic brutality. Art, I said, is full of crimes. The ugliness and violence in pornography reflect the ugliness and violence in nature. Pornography's male-born explicitness renders visible what is invisible, woman's Chthonian internality. It tries to shed Apollonian light on woman's anxiety-provoking darkness. The vulgar contortionism of pornography is the serpentine tangle of Medusa nature. Pornography is human imagination, intense, theatrical action. Its violations are a protest against the violations of our freedom by nature. The banning of pornography, rightly sought by Judeo-Christianity, would be a victory over the West's stubborn paganism. But pornography cannot be banned, only driven underground, where its illicit charge will be enhanced. Pornography's amoral pictorialism will live forever as a rebuke to the humanistic cult of the redemptive word. Words cannot save the cruel flux of pagan nature. The Western eye makes things, idols of Apollonian objectification. Pornography makes many well-meaning people uncomfortable because it isolates the voyeuristic element present in all art, and especially cinema. All the personae of art are sex objects. The emotional response of spectator or reader is inseparable from erotic response. As I said, our lives as physical beings are Dionysian continuum of pleasure-pain. At every moment we are steeped in the sensory, even in sleep. Emotional arousal is sensual arousal. Sensual arousal is sexual arousal. The idea that emotion can be separated from sex is a Christian illusion. One of the most ingenious but finally unworkable strategies in Christianity's ancient campaign against pagan nature. Agape, spiritual love, belongs to Eros but has run away from home. We are voyeurs at the perimeters of art, and there is a sadomasochistic sensuality in our responses to it. Art is a scandal, literally, a stumbling block to all moralism, whether on the Christian right or Rousseauist left. Pornography and art are inseparable because there is voyeurism and voracity in all our sensations as seeing, feeling beings. The fullest exploration of these ideas is Edmund Spenser's Renaissance epic, The Fairy Queen. In this poem, which prefigures cinema by its radiant Apollonian projections, the voyeuristic and sadomasochistic latency in art and sex is copiously documented. Western perception is a demonic theater of ritual surprise. We may not like what we see when we look into the dark mirror of art. Sex object, artwork, personality. Western experience is cellular and divisive. It imposes a graph of marked-off spaces on nature's continuity and flow. We have made Apollonian demarcations that function as ritual preserves against nature, hence our complex criminal codes and elaborate erotics of transgression. The weakness in radical critiques of sex and society is that they fail to recognize that sex needs ritual binding to control its daemonism, and secondly, that society's repressions increase sexual pleasure. There is nothing less erotic than a nudist colony. Desire is intensified by ritual limitations, hence the mask, harness, and chains of sadomasochism.